One of the biggest places people go wrong when it comes to spirituality is letting themselves become sensitive to things in a bad way. There is a big difference between being in tune and being sensitive. And that's what I want to talk about today. What's up, everybody? Boy, has it been a minute since I have jumped on here and shared with you guys. And I've had all these ideas swirling around in my head, and things just got a little crazy, to be honest. Just because you are working towards ascension, enlightenment, working on your spirituality doesn't mean that life doesn't come your way. And boy, has life come my way for a little while now. And that's why I want to talk about this today. Sensitivity versus resilience. I've even got some of my little notes here with me. So I was thinking about this a lot lately because there are people who you encounter in the spiritual community, the spiritual world, where they're sensitive to this and they're sensitive to that. And no, I can only eat this and I'll only eat that. And I've been guilty of this, which is why I want to talk about it. You know, there's a difference between protecting the temple that is your body. You know, we all have a temple that our soul resides in this 3D reality, and that's our body. And we want to protect that, and we want to treat it right. But that doesn't mean becoming sensitive to things. That doesn't mean becoming so sensitive to things that you can't handle them. It's about protecting it, but not to the degree where you're breaking it, basically. You're making it weak. You don't want to make your temple weak. You don't want to make your mind and your body weak. You want to make it strong and resilient through your spiritual path. So you've got to be careful when it comes to how you view what you're doing in the process of that. So I'll give you an example. I have special water that I drink, that I use for everything, because I don't want to have fluoride in my system, amongst other things. The water in my area is just crap in general. But that doesn't mean that if I go out somewhere, I can't drink any other water. And I was like that for a little while, you know, and I still bring my own water most places because I don't want certain toxins in my body. But you also want to make sure that, like the warriors of the past, you want to give yourself a little bit of that poison so you build an immunity to it, basically, rather than letting it make you sick. Again, that's not to say that I'm recommending you go eat a bunch of processed foods and consume a bunch of synthetic chemicals. But you also don't want to find yourself in a position where if you encounter those things, you can't handle them. Because that's not what this is about. That's not what spirituality is about. I have a quote here from A Course in Miracles, which is one of the best tools for building spiritual enlightenment, for, you know, ascending spiritually, building that spiritual mindset. And that's a lesson from the student workbook, which I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But it says, I have invented the world I see. These are all prompts for meditations. And then it goes on to say, you are not a victim of the world you see because you invented it. You can give it up as easy as you made it, because you're making your reality as it stands. You're making the world basically as it stands, as you see it. So this brings me to fourth way teachings, which we have what we call conscious shocks. And this gets into what I was talking about when it comes to, consuming a little bit of the poison to build resilience. That sort of concept. Where in fourth way, we learn to give each other, that's not what I meant to say. We learn to give ourselves what we call conscious shocks. And these conscious shocks are based on this idea that, we all have a path that we're on in this life. And if you fall off octave, as they refer to it, which just consider being on octave, being on your path. If you fall off your path, the universe will give you a shock of some kind to get you back on the right path. And sometimes as human beings, we can experience these shocks, and rather than letting them, because we have conscious awareness and spiritual enlightenment and ascension tools, because we don't have those, we can let these shocks have us fall further off of our octave, further off of our path. So what we want to do so that doesn't happen is create conscious shocks, which is basically doing anything that makes you a little uncomfortable, anything that creates purposeful change in your life, because we as human beings in this 3D world, we need change. That's our natural state. So anything to create conscious change. So this could be meditation, or it could be something as simple as changing the direction you go to wherever you're going throughout the day that you go regularly. Go a different way. That's an example they like to give in fourth way teachings. Or, just little small conscious changes of any kind that allow you to be just a little uncomfortable because you're constantly changing, so that you can stay on octave, so that you can stay on your path. Because the thing is we don't realize that we can get comfortable in one spot and stop traversing our path. And that's not good either. We don't want to stay stagnant. We're supposed to be a clean, clear channel for energy. And that includes making sure that we're continuing to move forward on our path. So we get comfortable sometimes in places that we are, but we're supposed to be moving forward. So we have to create these conscious changes for ourselves so that we don't get stuck in these places of kind of, comfort, but we're not always comfortable in those places. We as human beings have this thing we do where we consider ourselves comfortable even though we don't totally like where we are, because it's what we're used to. And we don't want to get caught in that. So we want to create these conscious shocks for ourselves so that the universe doesn't have to send us crazy life-changing events. It's not like we can avoid that entirely, but we're better off creating the conscious shocks for ourselves rather than constantly experiencing, as I talk about the law of accident, which is basically the universe constantly sending us these shocks, trying to get us to get either back on our path or keep moving forward on our path. So, the point of all this, I wrote down in my notes, is that the point isn't to be sensitive. The point is to be in tune. We can be sensitive to things in a good way, but we can also be sensitive to things in a bad way. So we don't want to make ourselves, we don't want to consciously put ourselves in a position where we're getting sick. We don't want to consciously put ourselves in a position where we're, mentally ill, basically. Or at least, what's the word I'm looking for? So mentally uncomfortable that we're basically traumatizing ourselves. That's not the word that I usually use, but It's not coming to me right now. You get what I mean, though. You know, we, especially with the spiritual tools that we're using, we want to be strengthening ourselves. We want to be resilient. We want to build our immunity to this 3D reality in life, rather than making ourselves weak and uncomfortable in bad ways and decrepit, basically. So yeah, that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So, last but not least, as I was talking about, the A Course in Miracles student workbook. It is my favorite tool for building conscious ascension, for building enlightenment within, for building a spiritual mindset. And I have been sharing them, the A Course in Miracles student workbook lessons, which are basically meditations to do once a day that help you, or they're prompts for meditations. Like this one that I shared a moment ago. The prompt itself is, the lesson itself is, I have invented the world I see. And so because it's one of my favorite tools to use, and I do it over and over again. There are 365 of them. They're a meditation for every day. And I do them over and over again and revisit them. So it's something that you can continue to learn from for a lifetime, even after you've gone over them. So it was important for me to start sharing them with the tribe over on Patreon. So I got to about 20 something of them, and then I had to take a break. So I'm going to be getting back into sharing these lessons through the tribe on Patreon, and I want to invite you guys to go check it out. It's an amazing collection of lessons that really does help us build not just that resilience, but helps us better understand the meaning. You know, that's one of the things we do as human beings, is crave meaning. And if anything, we want to make sure as people on a spiritual path, we want to make sure that we are not creating our own meanings. And that's what I love about the A Course in Miracles student workbook lessons, is it helps us understand first, you know, everything I see is meaningless, in the sense that everything that I think I understand is really my own perception, not the true meaning, not the true universal meaning. And then it starts to help you actually understand the universal meaning. So I'm going to get back into sharing these lessons with you guys via Patreon, via the tribe. And I'm excited to get back into it. So thank you for joining me for another video. May the energies you serve you well, and I'll see you in the next one.